تشکر. اول خو میخوایم براتون بگوییم که مسافریتان بخیر تیر شود و این کتاب اول از کرونا در امان است. این جای شکر است. با امید از اینکه بخیر درسای خود تکمیل کرده پس به کشور خود برگردین و مصدر خدمت شوین به افغانستان عزیز ما. ما نمیفهم که با این لکچر باید ما به انگلیسی بتیم یا با دری؟
استاد بزرگوار به دری، به خاطر که دوستای ما هستن که شاید انگلیسی بلد نباشن، به دری میشه ارائه بکنید، به خاطر که دوست خارجی نداریم اینجا رفقانای ما شما هستن.
با دری یک کمی به ما مشکل خواهد شد. به من انگلیسی بهتر بود. خب به هر صورت من کوشش خودم میکنم. یک کم اتم خب انگلیسی چی داره انشالله بلدیت دارین دیگه؟
شخصا من خب بلدیت دارم، مثلا دیگه را اگر من بگم با دیگران مشکل نداشته باشه. انگلیسی
خوب است.
با انگلیسی باید بکنیم شجان. کسایی که اینجا چه کردن گفتن انگلیسی مشکل نداره.
اوکی، پس انگلیسی بهتر است به خاطر از اینکه برای من آسان میشه و مو بحثم کلا با پرزنتیشن من به انگلیسی است. خب به هر صورت بازم thank you for joining. I would like to share my screen so that I have a not a short but a medium range presentation for you people. We would follow from the presentation. I hope everyone can see it.
Yeah, we can.
And yeah, those we will I will try to complete my presentation first, and then we will definitely have time for question and answer, of course. So today's topic is basically about soft balancing and the rise of the wrist. In the wrist, particularly, we will focus on China. What does it mean? In this presentation, we will briefly discuss three issues. What happened after the Cold War, and what happened after 9/11, and how China has to start soft balancing. What is soft balancing, and how China started soft balancing. Three issues. So let me start with the first one. My dears, when the Cold War between United States of America as the leader of the capitalist world and communist Russia started in 1945 and it almost ended in 1991. With the end of the Cold War, the world order changed from a bipolar to a unipolar system. In a unipolar system led by the United States of America. Now, the grand strategy of the United States of America during the Cold War was to contain the spread of communism. This was their basic framework. Now, since the Cold War is over and one of the major adversary, which was the USSR, is no more there, and US has become the unilateral power of the world, there was a discussion that what course of action shall the US follow now? What should the US do? Now the Cold War is over, the communism as an existential threat is no more there. What the US has to do? So the US political society was divided into four categories or four groups. Namely, each group came up with an idea. For example, the first group said that now it is time for the United States to go back into historical new isolationism, which means that we do not have a powerful challenger at the global order or at the global level, and we do not need to worry about the rest of the world now, and no one can threaten our interests now because we are very powerful and without a challenger. So we do not need to unnecessarily connect to the rest of the world and unnecessarily create problems for us. The best thing is to go to isolationism and bring our attention inward into the domestic issues of the United States of America. So this group was called Neo Isolationists. The second group said that no, our national interest is to selectively engage with some of the countries. For example, they said Russia, China, Japan, India, these are the countries which are not very powerful. They are second rank or major powers. But if these countries go to war with each other, it can harm the US interests in the region, wherever they are, particularly the Eurasian region, where Russia and China was there. So they said, in order to avoid war and in order to maintain peace in the world, because in the peace, the interests of the United States will be maintained better, we have to selectively engage with these countries and do not leave them to go to war. So this idea was called the selective engagement. The third group said that we have to have the cooperation security approach, which means that the United States have to maintain peace and security throughout the world with the help of the United Nations and other regional and international organizations. And this way it has to maintain the peace in the world and as well as spread democracy. And the fourth group said that no, the best interest of the United States now is to go towards primacy. Primacy means that we have to make the US further powerful and live in an imbalanced way. Means that the United States of America should be very, very powerful so that the rest of the world remains in peace and no one dare to challenge the international peace and as well as the American interest. This were the discussion of the 1992 after the Cold War was over. As a result, exactly at this time, the United States of American president was Bill Clinton. So the Clinton administration decided that for right now, we will go with the cooperative security, but our target or aim should be to reach to primacy. Means because United States of America had recently won the Cold War and it was still not prepared to become a hegemonic power. So they said we will use the international institutions at the moment to maintain the world peace and our interests, but our target should be to reach primacy and become a hegemonic country in the world. This was picked up at that time. But a very important point that the United States of America decided to reach to primacy by peaceful means and by defensive moves. And the strategy and the ideology of the thinking of the American system should be liberalism. Free economy and liberalism should be our school of thought. We have to spread this school of thought into the world, but by defensive moves through soft diplomacy, economic power, and other means. So this was decided. And this situation continued from 1991, 92 up to 2000. In this period of time, if we look at the Yugoslavia challenge crisis, the United States of America used, they intervened in the Yugoslavia, in the Kosovo crisis, but through the United Nations. They were very cooperative, they were very multilateralists, and they were defensive. But when the 9/11 happened in the US, things changed suddenly. What was the change? The first change that happened was the international order changed from a benign environment to a high threat environment. Now, what is the difference of these two? A benign environment is an environment where you do not have a potential challenger to threaten your interests. Everything is normal. همه چیز بسیار خوب است و ای تو کدام تهدیدی جدی مواجه شما با کدام تهدید جدی از طرف کسی مواجه نیستین. This is a benign environment. So from 1992 till 2000, the world, particularly the US, was living in a benign environment. But after the 9/11, the Americans started to think that the situation has changed and we are entering from a benign environment to a high threat environment. Now, the threat which was posed to the Americans was from the Al-Qaeda or from terrorism. Terrorism was a potential threat and it was threatening the interests and the security of the US in the globe and as well as in the US society too. So suddenly the benign environment changed to a high threat environment. کلا که صدای من میشنوه؟
میشنوم. شما بزرگ میشه که امیر فول سکرین بکنین سلاید شوره.
بله میشنوم استاد محترم میشنوم.
آوازم راضی استاد محترم.
اتنا که من خودم منطقه دارم باشم کسی نشنوه صدای مرا.
استاد میشنوم.
Then what happens after? Okay, good. So in all وقتی که global order وقتی که things within the global order change میشه، یکی از چیزهایی که از طرف ایالات متحده آمریکا تغییر میاد او شیوه رفتار آمریکایی ها دیگه تغییر میکنن، which means from a defensive mood they change into offensive mood. Now, what is defensive and offensive? As I said before, the United States of America wanted to maintain the security and stability of the world and as well as their own interests through peaceful means, through cooperation and through multilateralism and consultations with the rest of the countries. But after the 9/11, when they measured that the international the security situation of the world has become high threat environment, they say that there is now need for unilateral action, means that now they will do whatever they wanted to do, not by peaceful means, but by force, by shared force, which means the attitude of the Americans in regard to their foreign policy and interests change from a defensive mood to an offensive mood. Now, offensive mood does not necessarily mean diplomacy and soft power, but it means hard power and coercion. Yani zor. Now, this is the starting point, which we will come later on, that why China has to be alarmed. So, the changes that happened in the global order were the Americans changed from a multilateralism to hegemonic unilateralism. Means, سابق وقتی که امریکا کار میکرد از طریق ملل متحد و از طریق مشوره با شرکایش میکرد. حالا یا هیجمونیک یونیلاترالیسم شروع کرد. به این معنی که تصمیم یک طرفه میگرفت تو خوش است یا خفه است. I'm gonna do this. This is unilateralism. تک‌گرایی شروع کردن با تصمیم‌های یک طرفه. From a defensive to an offensive preventive strategy with regard to the use of force. و تغییر دومی که آمد اینها از یک حالت دفاعی به حالت تهاجمی تغییر کردن و او هم preventive به این معنی که پیش از اینکه کار شود اینها اونجا میرفتن و اونجا را از بین میبردن. And from peaceful democracy promotion to forcible regime change. بهترین مثال از این افغانستان عراق است. شما ببینید وقتی که در افغانستان ایالات متحده آمریکا از القاعده اوگار شد. They came اینها 10 سال دیگه صبر نکردن که رژیم طالبان را چپا کنن. They struck the American system and within a week, like in the morning when we woke up, there was democracy. If it was still a benign environment, it would have taken 10 to 15 years for the United States of America to change the regime of Taliban into a democratic government. But after the 9/11, since they changed their approach from a defensive to offensive, within 1 week, the Taliban were over and there was democracy. Why democracy? Because they thought that democratic countries do not go to war with each other. And for our best interest, the entire world or the regimes in the world has to become democratic. look at now. This is second case is Iraq. Look at Iraq. Iraq had not attacked the United States of America, but they had a feeling that since Iraq is an adversary or a hostile region, there was a risk that the Al-Qaeda and the Iraq regime could enter into an alliance and harm the interests of the Americans in the Gulf region. So before such a thing happens, before the Iraq makes any move, the Americans attacked Iraq and they call this a preventive strike. Means پیش از اینکه عراق برای ما تهدید شود که تهدید میشه ما حمله میکنیم و تهدید از بین میبریم. This is offensive approach. اینجا بود که وقتی که امریکایی ها از یک multilateral approach به unilateral approach آمدن و استفاده زور شروع کردن، کشورهای درجه دو خصوصا چین الارم شد. به این معنی که چین و کشورهای درجه دو مثل روسیه، ترکیه، مثل دیگه کشور مثل نورت کره و other countries اینها گفتن که آل دیگه امریکایی ها با سر خود آمدن and they could do anything. Today they attack Iraq, tomorrow they attack Afghanistan, next morning they could attack anybody because now they are on the offensive mode and they do not do anything in consultation with anybody. They are unilateralist now. Hope. Now what happens exactly now after 9/11? The international environment is high threat and not only high threat but دو نوع حالت تقسیم میشه. یک threat که برای امریکایی ها از طرف تروریسم مواجه است. threat دومی خود امریکایی ها با کشورهای درجه دو شد. Why? Because before the 9/11 Americans were multilateralists and they were peaceful and they were using defensive mode. And they could do things in consultation with the rest of the world. Now they are on their own, they are unilateral, and they are offensive. So the second-rank countries such as China and Russia, they were alarmed that US might do anything with them, or they could be next. Now what happens? اگر ما در یک وضعیت قبل جنگ دوم جهانی زندگی میکنیم، در وقتی که اتم در دنیا نبود، when there were no nuclear powers, the traditional way of challenging a hegemon was titanic war or big war, which is called world war. مثلا جرمنی یک وقت قدرتش بیشتر شد، انگلستان قدرت برتر دنیا بود. Germany went and challenged the United Kingdom with force by war. Because he wanted to acquire the hegemonic status, and United Kingdom as the hegemonic power has to defend it. In all چین وقتی که میخواد که امریکا را چالش کنه به خاطر که امریکا دیگه آل خطرناک شده، it could not do like Germany. Why? Because both China and US are nuclear powers. With the nuclear powers in between the both countries, military challenge is not possible. Why? Because it is mutual assured destruction. No one could win the war and both could lose the war because both has nuclear power weapons. Now, what is the new way? You have to do soft balancing because hard balancing is not possible. Hard balancing means going and challenging the hegemonic country directly with military power. With the existence of nuclear power, it is impossible to challenge any country. All you can do is you have to do soft balancing. Soft balancing means شما امریکا را مانعش میشین ولی از روش‌های غیر مستقیم. For example, I give you an example that when the Americans attacked Afghanistan, Turkmenistan gave them a base to the Americans. They have to give them a base so that the Americans could do their logistics from Central Asia to Afghanistan because US is so far from Afghanistan. Now, the Russians were not happy with this. The Russians did not like the Americans' presence in their backyard. So they could not tell the Americans that do not open a base here because America is so powerful. Russia cannot stop it. Instead, what they did, they told Turkmenistan that for the base which you have provided to the Americans, America is paying you $1 billion per year. We are going to pay you $8 billion. Tell the Americans to leave. Now the Russians should not face the Americans. They have to talk with the country, the host country. So Turkmenistan told US to take his base out. Instead, Russians were paying Turkmenistan as development or whatsoever money, 8 billion. Or for example, this is soft balancing. Or for example, when United States of America was attacking Iraq, Turkey was one of the countries who was not agreed to this. So what happened? The United States has to use the Gulf region, the extension of the Indian Ocean as a naval power, and as well as Turkish land as a land base. What happened? The Turks did not give them the base where the Americans troops could land and then attack from there on Iraq. Now Turkey could not stop the Americans from attacking Iraq, but Turkey just made it a bit harder for the Americans. This is soft balancing. China America را شروع کرد. Now China, Russia and Turkey and all those countries who opposed the unilateral approach of the Americans came together and they started frustrating, making it difficult for the Americans at times where they could. And this was called soft balancing. یا مثلا در ملل متحد اکثریت قطعنامه‌ها را ویتو کرد، یا در international stage روش امریکایی‌ها را انتقاد کرد. So this criticizing itself is a way of soft balancing. And why the soft balancing started? Because the Chinese and the second-rank powers felt threatened after the Americans became unilateral. So now, in all how is China going to do that? Now, how would the soft balancing approach work? In all Modelsky یک سکیم داره یا یک روش را یا پیشنهاد کرده که وقتی که شما در یک جهان یک قطبی میخواین که دشمن خدا یا مو قدرت برجسته را مانع شوید, so you do delegitimization. You cannot go directly and confront the Americans, but what you can do is you delegitimate means. هر تصمیمی که امریکا میگیره، هر کاری که امریکا میکنه، او را تو by اساس facts and figures and based on a reason you criticize them. و شما عملش غلط در برای کارهای امریکایی ها مثلا شما کارهای و نظریات بدیل را پیدا میکنید. This is delegitimization. و وقتی که delegitimization به میان بیاید then you do deconcentration. What is deconcentration? Americans have hubs of power, like Middle East is one of their hub of power. Western Europe is another hub of power. And in South Asia, for example, Pakistan was another hub. In Western Asia, there was Turkey. At times, there was Iran. So they had made choke points for themselves. What you do? Deconcentration is که توی نمی مردمایی که طرفدار امریکا هستن و allies امریکا هستن ایره یک به یک از امریکا جدا میکنی و به طرف خود میاری. This is deconcentration. Something the Chinese are doing. مثلا شما چند روز پیش دیدین یک الاینس اقتصادی بسیار بزرگ به رهبری چین ساخته شد. کشورهای به نام بریکس یک جا شدن که شانگهای کوآپریشن ارگانایزیشن جور شد. یوریشین یونیونی که روسیه جور کرده. This is deconcentration. یعنی کسایی که با امریکایی ها هسته آهسته آهسته یارا وارا به طرف خود آورده رایسته تا امی قدرت کم شوه یا امو ستوریجی که ساخته شده توسط امریکایی ها یا آهسته آهسته کم شوه. وبعد ذيك الديكونسنتريشن شد you build your own coalitions. باز مثلا 5 کشور 10 کشور در یک طرف جمع میشه و یک نوع توازنی از قدرت میاد. Someone raised his hand. نورزی صاحب. Abdullah Jan, can you allow him to speak?
Yeah, sure, he can speak.
He wants to talk. He has a question or what?
Okay, sir, I don't have some question. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry.
It's okay. So if you do have questions, then just wait. We will once I complete my presentation, then we can go ahead with your questions.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. I just need to. Okay, so now, right now, what the Chinese are doing, they are, what happened? They are not only the Chinese, the rest of the countries. When we see the rest, that's why I have given this title, the soft balancing and the rise of the rest. In the rest, we means Iran, we mean Russia, we mean China, we mean North Korea, we mean India, all the second-ranked big countries. But in the rest, apart from the US, after the US at the moment, looking at the economic, military, and technological development of China, China is the most important country in the rest. So that is why we will focus more on China. So right now, what is happening against the US is a delegitimization, deconcentration efforts happening. And this is exactly called soft balancing because it is not a military strategy. Now what is exactly China doing? When China and the rest of the countries started soft balancing against the Americans, China did not confront the Americans or did not immediately came with an alternative ideology, but China is still working within the international system that has been created by the US. China is still in relationship with the US. China is still following the liberal democratic global order made by the US, but it is working within the existing institutionalized global order. China is participating. For example, you look at the BRI, this One Belt One Road initiative. It is one of the biggest deconcentration project by China against the United States of America, but within the same system. China is not coming with a different system. He's working within the system. He is actively participating in this American-made system, but working for himself and deconcentrating in the same system, not confronting the Americans. For example, in the time of Cold War, the Russians were confronting the global order by coming with an alternative communist ideology. But the Chinese are not doing that. Chinese are within the international system, but trying to develop for themselves. So now in case China succeeds in balancing the Americans, if the soft balancing started by the China and the rest of the countries succeeds against the Americans, there are three scenarios in the coming time. One, China might come up with, once China balances his power with the Americans. Remember that the US is still a hegemonic country and China is still a rising challenger. Once the China balances against the Americans and we have a multipolar or a unipolar system, then maybe China would come up with an entirely new global order based on the philosophy of Confucius. Is he pronounced as Confucius? He's a Chinese philosopher. Forgive me if I pronounce it wrongly. Or the second opinion is that China will modify the liberal order. China would come up with the same system that is already made, but bring certain changes. We might witness a shift from a private capitalism to a state capitalism, something, or from a one party, from a multi-party rule to a one-party rule, or for example to another. So there will be certain changes, and some features of the international order will be changed. Or we might come up with a negotiated order where those areas under the influence of the Americans would be left to them, and those areas under the influence of China will remain with China, with the model that the China want to implement there. So there will be like a 2-3 type of a featured international order. This is what it is being discussed, that China, but till now nothing is clear, because the Chinese really haven't expressed their future alternative world order. But these are assumptions that maybe we will witness an entirely new Chinese order, or an order led by China. We will have a modified liberal order, or we will have a negotiated order. And as a conclusion, I can say that I have to wrap up, because we might have some discussions, that remember 3 things: that in the Cold War, the major political struggle was between communism and colonialism and capitalism. So the Western world was fearing the rise of communism, and the Eastern world was fearing colonialism, capitalism, and imperialism. After the Cold War, the global politics were driven by the fear of Islamic revivalism, Al-Qaeda, and terrorism. These were the bigger agendas. The West was fearing Islamic revivalism in the face of radical Islam, Al-Qaeda, and terrorism, and the Muslims feared the American hegemony and Western cultural imperialism. But now there is a shift in the global politics, and there is a shift in the global agenda, where the West is now scared or fear an ascending China, and China fears West to contain him. So the current political discourse is between a rising China and a declining American hegemony, where Americans would try to contain China from becoming a global an equal power, and China would try to assert himself as a global power. This is the current and would be the future course of world politics, but through a soft balancing and a soft approach, not through hard approach, because the existence of nuclear weapons makes it hard to think of a shift in the global order by force. It has to happen through soft balancing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. John,
Back to you, Abdullah.
For your interesting and informative lecture. امیدوار هستم طوری که به من مفید بود به تمام دوستان ما مفید واقع شده باشه. فعلا کسایی که سوال دارن استاد بزرگوار در رابطه با همین موضوع سوال خود پرسان بکنن. هر کس سوال داره میتونه سوال خود پرسان بکنه.
Thanks, dear sir. I don't have any questions. So much thanks from you. A bundle of thanks of you, dear sir. Thanks from your organization in you. Thanks. I don't question. Thanks.
I hope you people have understood what I was talking about, and somehow it was relevant to you people. I don't know most of you, so I don't know who is studying what.
کسایی که اینجا حضور بودن اصلا فکر میکنم از حقوق میخوانن روابط بین الملل از لحاظ برشون بسیار مفید واقع بوده. مطمئن هستم.
Okay.
بس ما پرسان کردن عبدالقهار گفتن based on your explanations, don't you think that world would experience as a bipolar world?
Yes, as I told you before, that a lot of the scholars do agree that the American hegemony is somehow declining, and that means China and Russia as the next great powers are on the rise. So we might see a shift from unipolarity to bipolarity and further to multipolarity in the future, in the recent future. Where you will have United States of America as one hub of power and China as another hub of power in the immediate future, and in the long future Russia will also join the club. So we will go towards a more multilateral world.
Thank you very much. کسی دیگه من سوال داره میشه پرسان بکنه از
Sir, we're so much happy that we had you and we have you in this session. I had just a question regarding your presentation. It was a good presentation, really. You mentioned that the United States is using the hegemonic unilateralism and say that 9/11 is US has started the use of force. So what do you think that what is the reaction of the United Nations itself? United Nations as a cooperative organization in the global system is there is existed. And as I know, based on the UN Security Council, it is prohibited the use of force by any state, and they are not really allowed to use. So what is the justification of the United States for the using of force against the other countries? And what is the reaction of the in this
Good question. Actually, there are two things. The Article 51 of the United Nations Charter says that the maintenance of world security is the responsibility of the United Nations Security Council, but a country has the right of self-defense if he or she is attacked until the UN Security Council comes to the job. So when US was attacked by the Al Qaeda in 9/11, under the Article 51 of the UN Charter, the Americans say that we are going to defend ourselves, and then the UN Security Council can come up with a resolution. This is one. From the United States side, this is one justification. Second thing about the UN itself, if you look at the realist theory, the realism school of thought explains the intergovernmental organizations as a tools to the states. States are still the primary actors in the international order or at the global order. And realists believe that international organizations such as the United States are tools used by the states whenever they feel the need. So until the 9/11, the US was using the United Nations as a respectable organization for the world issues. But when 9/11 happened, the Americans changed their behavior and they did not give importance to the UN anymore. They became unilateral, and UN was not effective anymore against the Americans because US was itself the most powerful country, and UN has no force of himself nor any political power. United Nations power is the member countries, and among them the most powerful US started a unilateral behavior. So United Nations was really not in a position to stop the Americans. And that is why most realists say that international organizations are not effective unless they are used by the states themselves.
So based on your explanation, you think that, the UN is not really responsible for the current condition of or for the current unilateralism of the US. So do you think that the destiny of the UN is the same as the League of Nations as it was before the Second World War?
From a realist perspective, somehow yes, because it is the states which relinquish a certain amount of power to international organizations which they are members. But if the states want to not use them or not give them importance, it is again the states who can do that. So from a realist perspective, UN is weak, but there are other theories such as constructivist theory and liberalist theory, which says that the international organizations do have a role. Even when the United States of America was attacking Iraq, the attack was vetoed in the UN Security Council. UN Security Council did not allow the Americans to attack under the auspices of the UN. But then the Americans went unilateral. They went on their own, and the UN really could not stop them. So at times, these international organizations are helpless against the big countries. This is one of the criticism on the international organizations, where they do stop small countries, but when it comes to big countries, they are helpless.
Yes, got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next.
بسیار تشکر استاد بزرگوار. یک دوست دیگه من پرسان کردن سوال، گفتن که محمد شعیب شاگرد رابط بین الملل در ماستری رابط بین الملل در پانتون کاردان هستن. سوال ما هستن گفتن که what is the impact of 9/11 on the regional actors? I think it should be what was.
This is a very general question. I don't know by what sort of impact he's asking for.
I don't know. He just wrote it like Muhammad Shuaib, MIR students in Cardan. So my question is, what is the impact of 9/11 on the regional actors?
Yes, I can see it. I can see it. What is the impact of 9/11 on the regional actors?
Maybe.
Well, 9/11 was a big event. On the regional countries, the impact was that the Americans reached almost to the throat of the Iranians coming to Afghanistan. Pakistan became once again a frontline state in war on terror, and that really changed the landscape of the South Asian politics, where India also then involved in Afghanistan, which was completely neutralized by Taliban. These were the impacts on the regional countries. The Russians at first were very optimistic to the Americans' presence in Afghanistan because they feared the radical ideology of the Taliban being spilled to their region, to Central Asia and then to Russia. The Russians were also sort of started cooperating with the Americans at the first. These are all impacts. They were big impacts in the region.
Yep. One more question from Ihsan Ghafouri. He said that what caused the decrease in American hegemony?
Throughout the history, throughout the human life, from the time that we have started recording history, there were always powers there were always hegemons, and then they at times they would rise, and at times they would decline, and another hegemon would come. It's more of a natural course that there was Athens at the time, Sparta and Athens, Greece, and then there was the Roman Empire, and then you had the Britons as the hegemons, and then you had the Russia and the Americans, and now the Americans. This is happening. It's more of a natural course, but the rise in the power of countries like China, the restanding of Russia, the rise in other regional powers such as Turkey, Iran, and like South Africa, India. These are the what do you say, the sort of shift that is happening. So the more the risk rises, the more there will be deconcentration in the American power and the American hegemony. So the Chinese rise is definitely at the expense of the Americans' power. So that is why the Americans' hegemony is declining, because the risks are rising. If you look at the anarchic Russia of 1992 and look at the Russia of 2021, There's a huge difference. If you look at the 1992 China and at 2021 China, there's a huge difference. So the rise of these countries is at the expense of the American power. That is why it is declining.
Thank you very much, Sojan. Ismail Shafi, you can ask your question.
Hello to all. Hello, sir. As we know that the system currently and until the 2017, the system is unipolar, and we have only US as a hegemony in the system. So the but after that, we showed that rise of China and Russia as a great power will lead to a multipolar world and a multipolar system and international scholars that there will be like a third world war to be happen among the Russia, China, and US, because we have in the past the if Germany rise while Germany rised in 20th century, then UK stand against them and war happened. But you argued before that the existence of nuclear weapons made it impossible for states to go against each other. That's okay, I'll accept that. But the main question is coming here during the war while Russia attacked on Afghanistan. At that time, even we have a nuclear weapons, but war happened. It's okay. The war was civil war, not much the destructive war like Second World War. But if the main question, my main question is here that is there any civil war like it was in the past is possible to happen among these three great powers, Russia, China, and US or not? Thank you.
Okay. See, my brother, as I told you before, historically, when a rising challenger would in a situation would directly challenge the hegemonic power, and if succeeded, would bring the shift in the global order by actually confronting militarily his opponent. But due to the nuclear weapons, now no country can challenge the other country directly in order to take the title of the hegemonic power. For example, China cannot attack United States of America to acquire the hegemonic title. Why? Because there is mutual destruction. So it is not possible. But coming to a war like Afghanistan, yes, there will be proxy wars, but there is a difference between a proxy war in a small country with low intensity and big war such as between Russia and US or China and US. Big wars will not happen. According to many historians, even this Fukuyama says that with the existence or with the invention of nuclear wars, the end of history for big wars happened. Means bigger wars will not happen, but proxy wars can happen. Look at Russia involved in Syria and US. Proxy wars will happen here and there, but proxy war will not determine the title of hegemonic power. It has to happen through a soft balancing approach. We all hope that we do not see an actual war or an actual confrontation between these big powers for the acquiring of hegemonic title. The humanity will be destroyed. So small wars will continue, ethnic wars will continue, proxy wars will continue, but big wars will not happen in order to bring a shift in the global order. That is for sure.
Thank you very much, Sajan. One more question from, I guess, from Bakhshi Abdul Qahar. You can ask your question. Sharifullah Dawlatzai. Yep, you can ask your question.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm too delighted to the part of this important Zoom meeting. I'm Sharifullah, one of the research scholar of ACIR in a master degree of in the field of agriculture. My question is about the interior politics of Afghanistan, and this is the reality to Al Qaeda destroy our country, and after that the American soldiers come to Afghanistan and attack by the civilian in the village area of Afghanistan. This is a very bad condition for us because all Al Qaeda and American soldier and all the other country soldier is killed the Afghan civilian. This is a very bad condition for us in for all Afghanistan, all the people of Afghanistan. My question is this, how can reduce the conflict in Afghanistan, and what is your advice for Afghan political party in Afghan government? And nowadays also China and India is a competition rule in Afghanistan for to gain the goal in the Afghanistan, and they also competitive rule in Afghanistan. And what about your what is your opinion about the rule of China in India in Afghanistan, and how, what is your idea about the competition of this two big country of the world?
Abdullah Jan, I'm sorry, I did not grasp what he said. Maybe on my side, it was not okay, or he was not very clear. Can you repeat what he asked exactly?
Yeah, my specific question is that to how can reduce the conflict in Afghanistan, and what is your advice for Afghan political party and for Afghan government about to decrease the conflict in Afghanistan, because this is a very bad condition for all of us to kill the civilian people in this war.
Dawra Zeseb,
Did you get it?
this must be one.
Did you get
This
it?
must be one of the most difficult question, how to reduce conflict in Afghanistan. But I believe the only way to reduce the conflict in Afghanistan is a negotiated settlement. Afghan government and the Taliban has to come up on a sort of understanding regarding the bloodshed and the war that is going on. There has to be a kind of inclusive, all-inclusive government where all the warring parties see themselves included, so that we stop the actual warfare. That is the only feasible way I can see at the moment, a negotiated settlement. Because the continuation of war is not the solution, and neither side can have a military victory. So a negotiated settlement is the only way to reduce the violence and bloodshed, my dear.
Okay, what is your opinion about the rule of China in India? They have a competition rule in Afghanistan. I think
not to that serious amount. I see a competition between India and China in Afghanistan. They both want to hold a sort of influence on the Afghan government, because Pakistan and India are arch rivals. So Afghanistan matters then for them. But in regard to China, I believe China has some sort of concerns regarding the Uyghur Muslims, and I believe they do understand that having a radical Islamist government in Afghanistan will definitely have spillovers to the Uyghur Muslim or to the East Turkmenistan movement, which will create further insecurity and hardship to the Chinese economic and as well as political interests. So the only reason that the Chinese would somehow enter into negotiation with the Taliban is to guarantee their interests of having the Taliban not being supportive of the East Turkmenistan movement. yeah, that is the concern of China. In regard to competition, I really see a competition between India and Pakistan. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank
I once again thankful to Abdullah for giving me this opportunity to talk in front of you. Thank you for